Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Thursday morning. I got to tell you something. Yesterday, what a wild ride we had yesterday. We start off with this incredible performance, right? We're getting out of earnings, and we look at Microsoft, and it's flying, and Google, and it's flying. You look over at Tesla. You take a look at Xilinx. You look at Amazon even. Those big hitters all moving to the upside, and that propelling the markets a lot higher. That being said, the sell-off began and the sell-off continued, and in the final hour, sharp selling actually pushed down the Dow. It finished the day down 260 points. Look over at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ was up about 100 points, somewhere in that sort of area, and it got sold off all the way to the point where actually about 100 points later, it finished up the day basically flat, both the NASDAQ and the Dow. That was the final hour of trade. And really, really interesting just to see the sharp selling that we had seen. The volatility index got a little bit of a lift, and it was actually somewhere very close to, call it 17. Monster day yesterday in volumes. I bring it up each and every day. I've been doing this, the take, for over a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is. And I got to tell you something. Volumes just continue to be strong and powerful. 41.4 million contracts yesterday. Tesla leading once again. 2.1 million contracts. Now, that's been day after day after day for Tesla. It's been an extraordinary run, and the volumes supporting this move that it's made to the upside. We pointed it out a couple times just a week and a half ago or so. Stock was 835. They were buying the 850s. They've continued to buy higher and higher and actually moving out in time, trading a lot out in January as well. But Microsoft, 1.2 million contracts. That was a monstrous day yesterday. Microsoft having a really, really good day and actually held on to a lot of its gains throughout the day. Crude, that's where everything sort of started and ended in terms of the movement that we were seeing in the markets. We started just a few days ago, it was 85. Yesterday, early, it's about 84. We finished the session a lot closer to 82 and a half. We've just been seeing a little bit of pressure coming on crude oil of late, and that definitely pulling down the energy space. Matter of fact, you look over at energy yesterday, down nearly 3% yesterday. Financials, when you look over at the 10-year trading right around 155. Look at financials, they were down nearly 2% yesterday. Materials, industrials under pressure, down 1.2, 1.4% across the board. Throw in biotech just to throw in one more. %. Then you look at MasterCard, down about 6%. PayPal, down about 3%. Capital One, which we have had a nice ride in Capital One, but a lot of that exposure being on the credit side, the credit card side, that was a stock that got pounded as well, down about 7%. Twitter actually is a great example of the day. Twitter actually started off the day at $60. By the time we finished the day, it was underneath 55. Definitely huge pressure on Twitter throughout the session. AMD, it actually hit new highs yesterday, 128, finished the session at 122. Juniper did have a nice day. That was up about 8.5%. But you look across at much of what we were seeing yesterday, and a lot of what was strong early, that got sold off as we got further into the session. So today we start off, we're looking pretty strong. We look at those jobless claims, they drop. Market up about 80 points on the Dow, about 90 points on the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ's just continued to build upon that, up about 130 points. Dow, sort of the same story, up 100, up 120, up 180. Just last I looked, it was up about 185 points. I'm looking at volatility starting to come in a little bit. We're back into the 16s, but we're in that low category of volatility anyway. Call it 15 to 17, and that's exactly where we find ourselves right now in the 16s. Crude, right around 82 last I looked. It was actually gaining a little bit of momentum. And then I looked over at the 10-year, not a whole lot of movement. We've been talking about how it's been kind of frozen for a little while. Had that brief pop to 1.7, but here we are at about 1.56. So healthcare, that's been strong. Just consumer discretionary, starting to build a little bit upon that. Financials, up nearly 0.75%, not so bad. Technology starting to move to the upside. It was up about 0.8, moving up towards 1%. Energy was flat, starting to get a little bit more positive, close to 0.5% to the upside. So as we get into earnings today, or at least the earnings from last night and into today, take a look at Ford. Ford absolutely having an extraordinary day, moving to the upside, and we'll be talking a little bit more about Ford in just a second. But that stock up anywhere between, call it 10%, 11%, whatever it might be. It's having a really, really nice, solid performance today post earnings. Merck up about 4%. I'll tell you what, you look over at the EV space, that world is definitely still continuing to rip to the upside. Take a look at Tesla, take a look at NIO, take a look at LCID, take a look at Live. All of these various names, whether they're directly EV automobiles or batteries, whatever the case may be in that space, having a pretty decent day as well. eBay under some serious pressure today. I looked at it just a little while ago. It was down 3 or 4 or 5%. Then last I looked, it was down well over 8%. So eBay definitely under some serious pressure. Now, semiconductors having a pretty decent day. I look over at KLAC. I look at Lam Research. I look at NXPI, all of which are up, call it 1.5%, 2%, 3%, 5%. Really, really nice gains on the day so far. Under pressure, Chinese names once again. So you got the mix of what's really kind of going on there. Those Chinese names have had some fits and starts. They were starting to run for a little while, just a few days, and now we've seen a little bit of pressure over the last couple of sessions. So jumping into unusual option activity, here's what I got for you. I mentioned that Ford is having a good day. Maybe there's even a little bit more fuel left in the tank because Ford hit twice today on our unusual options elite program. Let me tell you something. Stock was trading right at 17 and a quarter, and here's what we were seeing. First, 26,700 of the October 29th. Yeah, those expire tomorrow. Today's the 28th. The 17 and a half calls. Those were 15 cents up to a little bit higher than that. Secondly, November 5th. So buying out another week, about 6,700 of the November 5th, 19 calls that they were buying. Those were 7 cents up to about 19 cents. Going to take a pretty good lift to get up to that level. We've got 1 week for those to play out, but seeing two very bullish calls in Ford on a day where Ford was already running to the upside and this adding to it. And by the way, we talked about LCID yesterday. We had those lucid options. They're exploding to the upside today, and we're seeing even more paper added to that as well. Plug Power is number 2. Plug Power, we talk about this name every once in a while, PLUG, trading just underneath 36 bucks, 35.88. We had 12,000, actually 11,900 of tomorrow's expiring. Yes, short term. We've been talking about that time and time again. Short term, the 36 calls. They do expire tomorrow. 26 cents up to 65 cents. Just has to make a little bit of a move up and through this 36. We'll see if it can do that. But definitely seeing some very, very incredible option paper already early across the board. And yes, automobiles, EV space, that seems to be an area that's definitely replaced what was energy. It seems now we're moving a little bit more and we're seeing more and more in the EV space. We'll see if this trend continues. The trend that does continue is very, very short-term option trades. And that's something that we've been watching for well over a year and a half. Once in a while, a little bit of a stretch, but for the most part, very, very short duration options. A lot of trading going on out there, folks. A monstrous day yesterday, as I talked about in the volume department. We're starting off pretty strong today as well. Folks, have a great day of trading. We'll see you tomorrow.